Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the official International Brotherhood of Magicians podcast. My name is Jason Michaels, joined by my co-host Ben Young. Scott Cantrell is out today, but we have a much prettier person in his place. The always, star of the stage, Ken Scott, joining us. Our guest today. Hello, Ken.
Hello, my friends. Scott, I think we should let's just kick him off this.
Oh,
Let's just
you want to take his place?
Yeah, can we let's do us and
It'll be just from here on out. I
yeah.
think people definitely want to hear what Ken Scott has to say about magic.
I don't know about that, but thanks for
We can
having me.
consider this this can be your audition.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see how many downloads we get on this episode, and then we'll see.
There you go. For every download, I'm going to send everyone $20. So there's a little
Oh,
bit.
no, don't say that. Don't say that. I'll be downloading this thing like crazy.
No, I'm sorry. I'll be sending Stephen Bargatze will be sending $20 to everybody.
There you go. That's more like it. That sounds like the Ken Scott I know. Always, you and Bargatze are always sparring with each other. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. You always
it's
have
kind of like back in the day when
online.
It's kind of like the back in the day when Carol Fox and Ab Dixon used to do that back in the day. And it's become a game for us when we go to conventions. What can we do just to be funny and creative? And we find ourselves at a Walmart every convention buying stupid props to do stupid stuff. So we have fun with it.
Who was the one? Did you chloroform him or did he chloroform you at the Atlanta?
That was at the Winter Carnival when I was president, and he did that to me at Winter Carnival. And then when this past year, when I went back, I chloroformed him. And then
we're talking about a gag on stage, folks. Nobody actually.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, that I know of. I don't really. I mean,
You have to understand that the way I was tracking the story was we always end up going to Walmart, and then we ended up chloroforming each other. So it makes me think that is this easily accessible? Do you do self-checkout?
Yes, it's easy accessible. Yeah, it is. No, like for Walmart reasons, is like if we come up with a bit like he'll say, hey, we got to go get a wrestler's belt for a bit we're gonna do, or we got to get something. And so we'll head to Walmart and buy these props. This past year at Winter Carnival, I wanted him to be my assistant and dress him like a girl. And he went along with it, and he was Stella Bargatze.
Stella.
So I had to go find a blonde wig and some kind of red sequence thing for him to wear. Listen, it's probably more just for us than it is about for anybody.
I was about to say, it sounds like it might be you guys just amusing each other.
Yeah.
You know what, though? To your credit, I know that, you guys, anytime people do bits and they're like, kind of like inside jokes for the magic community, I love that. I think it's great. And I know that I know that Steven you guys go way off the charts to do wild stuff that like most normal people would never do. Like you tell Stephen Bargatze, hey, I want you to wear a dress. I'm going to put you in a wig. And he's like, yeah, okay. That's a Thursday.
He's like, okay.
But just for you, Ken.
Don't tell Carol.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's one of the fun things all right, we'll get into all of that here real quickly. Ken, you are a Renaissance man. You are a past international president of the I.B.M. That was one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast. You're also a full-time performing magician. You perform for both youth audiences as well as adult audiences and just family audiences in general. I've seen you work for all sorts of different types of groups, and you're a master at it. You run the Atlanta Harvest of Magic. I mean, you have a lot going on. You play places on a consistent basis where magicians would love to go, like the Magic Castle and places like that. So let's dive into your world of magic a little bit. I want to talk about the I.B.M. stuff, but maybe we just kind of go back a little bit further. Tell us about tell us a little bit about how you started, kind of keep it a little short because you probably have told the story a million times, but then tell us about the type of magic that you love doing and your audiences, because I'll just, as an aside, I'll just say you're probably one of the slickest and I mean this in the nicest way possible, as far as the slickest performers I've seen. Every time I see you on stage, you have a line for every moment, you have a music cue for every moment. Like watching you is like watching, like if you want to watch somebody have a real legitimate commercial act that I guarantee you every audience will like, watch Ken Scott. And that's,
What
you
what
can,
is what
that's
is
a
your
little
Venmo?
commercial.
What is your Venmo? Give
My
me your Venmo.
His
So tell us how
Venmo
you
is
got into it
Ben
and
Young
everything else.
Live.
Ben Young Live,
Ben
yeah.
Young Live is Jason's Venmo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I got interested in magic like all of us. Actually, you know, my mom, you know, she took me to a library when I was like 7 years old, got a book, read the book, made every trick in the book. And then my birthday's in May, and she went to a magic shop in Atlanta, and she
Mhm.
had bought at this magic shop called M&M Magic. She bought nickels and dimes, a thumb tip to vanish a silk, and then sponge balls. And she came back and gave me this as a gift. And she's sitting there trying to show these tricks to me with all failure. I'm like, Mom, what big plastic hunk of thing on your thumb? I don't know. This is what the guy did. I said, what are you trying to do with that spongy thing? And so she had to take me back to the magic shop for this magician to show me how to perform these things. And I remember just barely looking over the glass counter. And I remember walking in and just being in awe of this shop. And at that time, it was a man named Jim Maney who was part owner of this. And then Dan Garrett, who also was the
Okay.
manager of this place. And I always credit them for selling me my first magic tricks, and then them explaining to me the tricks that my mom bought. And then once I got into that, I really enjoyed performing these magic tricks. And I would say at that time, there wasn't like a small thumb tip, big thumb tip, but I just knew that, you know, there wasn't a lot of money in my house back in those days. And
Mm.
she told me, you're going to learn this trick. And I remember that big thumb tip being on my thumb and just practicing this stuff at 8 years old, and practicing how to do sponge balls, and getting up at my third grade class and my teacher making me perform every Friday in front of the class. Kind of made me get out of my shyness and start
Oh.
performing. And it started in third grade. And then I went to my first magic convention, I think at like 12 or 13. And that's really where it just snowballed for me, was able to attend a magic convention.
That's so interesting that you had a teacher who was like, all right, Ken, you're going to go up and perform magic tricks for us now.
Oddly
Because,
enough, this teacher I transferred from a school in Atlanta that wasn't great to a school more in the rural area, and I couldn't read well when I was young. And I passed from third grade to fourth, but my mom wasn't convinced I needed to. She felt I needed to be held back for another year because I couldn't read, but yet they accelerated me up. So she wanted me to be held back, and she insisted that I get the same teacher, which doesn't happen. And she told the principal, she said, no, I want him to have her. So I was able to have my third grade teacher 2 years in a row, which was very unique. Doesn't happen much. And I just grew a neat bond with her. And she knew I loved magic. And then she knew how I'd go to the library and, get the magic books at our library. And she just wanted me to get up and do these tricks. And she was, so I credit her a lot for that.
I feel like I hear stories like this a lot where a teacher will see that magic is the thing that kind of like fuels the fire for the child, and they're like, okay, now how do I incorporate this interest in magic into
Yeah.
teaching them what I need to teach them?
Yeah, and I think teachers, there's a credit. I think teachers can find that magic or anything. Maybe they see a kid that can sing. Maybe they see a kid that, is creative in drawing and stuff. I think there's teachers that find those students that have those little talents in them, and I think they bring them out. Which is we need more of that. And I credit teachers for doing that today.
It's very cool. Very cool. So you found, so when did you find the IBM? When did you find, or when did you find a
My first,
magic club? I don't know
yeah.
if it was an IBM club, but when did you find
Yeah,
a
it
magic
was.
club?
It was an IBM Ring 9, and I was probably 13.
Mm,
I remember going because it was Daytona Magic was there doing like a
mm,
lecture slash demo, whatever you call
yep,
those. Now I
sure.
remember just seeing all this magic they brought, and I was hooked. And I remember meeting JC Doty, who was a big part of our Ring 9, a big part of IBM, and he kind of took me under his wings. And and I look back at those days when I was like 13, and my dad worked for Eastern, and my mom worked for the government, doing some stuff for Medicaid and stuff. And I remember telling them I want to go work for this dealer, this magic dealer in Daytona, and they didn't know them. And my mom just stuck me on an Eastern plane to Daytona to work for them. And I'm like, when my parents were alive, I go, what were y'all thinking? What were you thinking about sending a 13-year-old boy to work for these guys you never knew. And times were so different back in the early 80s, right? So,
I was about to say that is a wildly different thing than would happen
yeah.
today.
Well,
I
you gotta
think
remember,
I don't know.
back in those days, we would ride the bikes with no helmets, and we would.
Right.
There wasn't the phones in our, is that go outside and get back home before it's dark. So it was those days.
So did you work for Daytona Magic then for a while?
I did, and I credit Harry, Allen, and Irv Cook for a lot of things. I got to do a lot of magic conventions. They took me to the first national IBM, which was in Kansas City, and I believe it was gosh, who was the president then? I can't think who the president. Anyway, the president was, I think was it? I can't remember. But nevertheless, when I saw the president come in with that chain, I was so taken back. I went, "That's the guy." I said, "That's him. That's the guy who is the president." And I remember seeing like Max Maven, and there was Harry Blackstone, and I'm like, "Oh, this is." And just
Wow.
being a young teenager, looking at these people at a major convention, with at that time, over 1,000 people was
Yeah.
incredible. So that
And
was,
now,
yeah.
now when people go to conventions, they go, "There's who is that guy? Is that Jason? What's that guy's name? Oh, I don't know who that is."
I
That's
know
what they
it
say.
seems like back in those we gave much more gravitas to presidents of the IBM back in those
Yeah.
days, and now it's like, who's that? Yeah, so I get it, but I really I just remember seeing the president, and it's his name is dawning on me, but I cannot click on it. But he said,
It'll pop in and
yeah,
and you'll just spit it out. That's
yeah, but he
fine.
was great, and we're still friends to this day. And I remember him, having, I think I had him sign my linking ring or something at the time, but it was great. It was just
That
being
is cool.
being at my first IBM at 14 was very memorable.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, especially if you're sitting there and there's Harry Blackstone Jr., there's Max I mean, yeah, I mean, like these are people that were certainly I mean, the major stars of the day. And at this point now in time now when we're talking, these are legends. I mean, absolutely legendary people who shaped the way that magic has been seen,
Oddly
even
enough, at that very convention, because I become great friends with Nathan Burton, and I remember Harry telling me, "Go teach this kid Wonder Bar." And we all know what Wonder Bar is. It's the floating thing that twists
hmm
around. And I remember very vividly that it was Nathan. I don't know if it was Nathan Burton. I mean, he was only like 10 or 11 at the time.
yeah.
And I remember Harry telling me, "Go over and teach him how to do the Wonder Bar." And then I don't know why I remember that, but when me and Nathan became really good friends like 15 years ago, I went, "Do you remember this? Were you at a convention in Canada?" He goes, "I was. I was with my sister and we competed." And it was him. So
So
that
Wow.
we just he doesn't really remember the whole Wonder Bar story, but he remembers getting the Wonder Bar. But I remember teaching him, and I don't know
that's
why that
cool.
clicked on me. I remember some stupid stuff, but that was a unique one.
It sounds like you're like literally set up to be a magician. You get into magic at a young age. You end up working for a magic shop. You go to these magic conventions where I guess are you working the booth? You're doing
Yeah.
demos and stuff? Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
I was demoing, and he would say, "All right, we need to sell at least a dozen of these today." And you push these different things, and yeah. So, and then to go back and work at a magic shop, you got to remember, as all of us, I know Ben and I know you, Jason, can probably say the same thing. When you go to a magic shop, I still get taken back, going, "Wow, look at this stuff." And I remember just being able to work at a magic shop and going to the back walls of the magic shop and looking at all the little cubicles and look at all the magic stuff. And I want one of those. I want one of those. And that was when magic shops were very prevalent back in those days, and there was a lot more of them. So,
Yep.
anytime I see a magic shop today, I still get taken back, and I can go back and be like a kid again.
I love that. That is cool.
Yeah,
Ben,
Did
you
you have a hard time selling things as like a 13 or 14-year-old,
that's a good question.
pitching to all these old guys?
Yeah, he would put me on more to the younger guys, like, "Hey, show me." Like he would say, "Just sit here and do this, like demo the Wonder Bar." And I got really good at the
Hmm.
Wonder Bar, so I would just sit there behind the booth doing this, and he would bring a couple guys over, and then he would sell it at $10 or whatever it was at the time, and or it might be a new Tenyo product that he would say, "Learn this and keep doing this." So it wasn't like I was just, and I would try to ask a guy, "Hey, what are you into?" And I always felt kind of foolish because here's this 60-year-old man and a 13-year-old is going, "What are you into?" So yeah, I think I was more just the guy who would just do a quick trick, and Harry would say, "Hey, watch this," and Ken would do something. So
that's
Hmm.
cool.
yeah,
That's cool.
good
So
question.
when did you start doing when did you start getting paid for like to do shows, not to demo, but like when did you start doing shows? And did you start in Daytona or did you start in Atlanta?
Probably Atlanta, but I don't. Gosh, I just remember my grandparents would bring me into their church, and I would do a show, and they'd give me like
Yeah.
$50, or I would go do. I do when I got to turn 16. I remember might have been no, it was 15 because my mom had to drive me. I took a job at Burger King, and just because my mom goes, "You got to get a job."
I didn't know
And
they
so,
let people do magic at Burger King.
well, so then I put on my little application. It says magic as a hobby, and the guy who interviewed me goes, "So let's see you do magic, because we have birthdays here, and maybe we can have you run them and do the magic shows." I went. He goes, "We'll pay you instead of 3.25 an hour. We're going to pay you 3.50 an hour." I go, "Done."
It's
And so
awesome.
I would bring my old bag up there and of tricks, and I would set up the birthday party for him and do a little magic show for him with my suitcase table. And yes, I was like the Burger King magician at $3.50 an hour. So I
You
think,
were
and then go
you were
home
the
with
most
my
underpaid.
corduroy costume from the Burger King costume you wore, and my mom would go, "You smell like a Whopper." So it was.
You smell like a Whopper. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. So, all right. So you had quite the background growing up. At what point did you decide that you wanted to do magic? I mean, was that something that just kind of like naturally evolved and all of a sudden you found yourself just doing a bunch of shows and you're like, well, I guess I can make money doing this? Or was there a moment when you said, you know what? I'm going to really give this a go. I'm going to get really serious. I'm going to turn this into a business. I'm going to go after, uh, the different, I mean, tell us that.
Yeah. Well, I when I went to work for Daytona, it was really just a summer job. So I would do my summers down either on the road or down in Daytona. But I found myself, I was into sport. I love baseball, and I played baseball all the time. And I found myself playing baseball up into high school. Um, and I kind of got out of magic a little bit. I just, you got into your teen life. You found, oh, look at that girl, she's cute, and
Hmm.
magic kind of took a back seat. And so I didn't even think much about magic when I was, 16, 17, 18. I was really, thinking about what am I going to be doing for the rest of my life when I get out of high school. And I thought, I think I want to get into radio. I want to do DJ. And so I went to a broadcasting school and got in after I graduated from that. I went to a really big station in Atlanta. It was top 5 in the nation. And I went right on and worked in this great, usually you go to
Oh,
like an
wow.
AM station, but no, I was lucky enough to land this job, and I worked on the morning show, which was one of the top 5 morning shows in the country, and loved it. But I didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was doing. I was 20 years old, didn't know anything about radio, but just loving life. I was getting like 10,000, again, making very pennies on the dollar. I was making $10,000 a year.
Yep,
And
yep.
then like 7 of us got laid off maybe a year and a half later, and the guy who took several of our jobs because he came as an intern was Ryan Seacrest. He was a high school student here in Dunwoody, and he came in and took our jobs that we were making 10,000. He did it for free for a few years, and a good friend put him on the air overnight, like at 2 a.m. The hotline rang, and it was the program director and telling they wanted to talk to Ryan the next day. He thought he was going to be let go. End up being they put him on a weekend shift doing like a afternoon shift in the weekends, and I got laid off, and Ryan is now a multi-millionaire, and look where he's.
Hmm. Wow.
So
Wow.
then after I got laid off from radio, I just said, all right, radio's not for me. I got to find another job. So now I think I worked briefly for the airlines, and I found a job doing warehouse work for a company called McMaster Car um, Supply Company. And then I just started doing magic. Really, at that time, I got married, and I started just doing magic part-time, doing birthday parties. And then it just started affecting my job full time. So I would have to take vacation time to go do shows.
Mm,
And
yep.
then I don't know, 8 years into my job, they said you can go part time. So I went part time, and I was able to
Oh,
do more shows. And ultimately, I just pulled the trigger and said, I think I need to quit and pursue this full time. And my wife was back in it, and never looked back. So yeah, I think that was like 1998, 99. I left that, and so yeah, that's kind of how it went from there.
wow. So if somebody was in a similar position to you, they have a job and they're like, they love magic, and they said, what should I do in order to go pro? Because there are plenty of people who dream of being, I mean, there are a lot of people who don't. I mean, so they don't dream of being a full-time magician. But I've heard a lot of stories about people who are like, I've always wanted to give it a go. So if you were to give them, I've heard people give a lot of different types of advice. Some people are like, make sure you're making the same amount as a magician as you are with the job you're working. What would you tell somebody?
Well, especially young people, I would say do it. What do you got to
Yeah,
lose? You know,
yeah.
uh, if you now have families or you got major responsibilities, I would caution. At that time, we had one daughter, and my wife she worked, and she still works, and I would say she is to this day my insurance. She's my health insurance, uh,
Mm.
which is when you're working independent and you're working with a business on your own, to try to get insurance is not easy. And so she was able to secure that for me. And, so I would say have a support in your spouse or your partner. And, whatever you're going to do, just make sure they're behind you and you got the backing of it. Otherwise, it's going to be hard. But if you're young, I'd say go for it. Yeah. Or if you got a good bank account, I'd say go for it. You know,
So what we learned
there's some
from that,
struggles. There's some struggles going into this kind of line of work.
yeah. So what we learned from that is that Ben needs to get married to somebody who has health insurance.
Ben, I don't know. Ben, how old are you now, Ben? We've known each other for a long time. How old are you?
Oh, we're not going to say on the air, but I'm in my 30s.
Are you in your 30s, you said?
I'm in my 30s. Yeah.
Because I've known you probably since you were a late teenager, if I remember meeting you at a convention.
Yeah.
So, and you're at it full time now. I mean, we should ask you, how did you,
Yeah.
you're doing it full time, right?
Yeah. I mean, I just said yes to everything and
That's true.
avoided when my mom would say, you should be a teacher.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Well, listen, I told my mom I wanted to be a doctor. She said, no, I want you to be a magician. So it was quite the opposite for me. She said, you got to be a magician.
My mom
Let's
did come around. My mom listens to the podcast for maybe she did come around.
Hi, Patty. Hi, Patty.
It
Listen,
took
I think when my parents were alive, at least, especially my dad, before he passed away, I think he's still worried about me, even to his dying day. I think he's like, "How
Sure.
things going? You doing okay?" So I think parents just, when you're in magic or you're in that kind of self-employment life, they kind of, "Are you all right? Are you making it?" So
yeah.
yeah,
And both my parents were teachers, so they're used to the like super steady
yeah,
salary, the pension, all the benefits, all that stuff. And so to go this completely different direction was a
yeah.
lot for them to take in.
And
Mhm.
I think, parents just want the best for their kids, but they want that
Yeah,
security too. So I think that's
for
just what
sure.
parents do. So applaud parents for that.
For
Jason,
sure.
did you have a question locked and loaded, or can I ask one?
You need to fire away, my man.
All right. So, Ken, you are known for being in so many different markets. And you're performing, like Jason said, you're performing family shows, kid shows, corporate events, and it kind of goes against what the mainstream advice is. Everyone says like you need to pick one market, focus completely on that. If you're going to be in any other market, you need to try to keep them as separate as possible, have stage names, do all this stuff. And you are kind of the
Rebel.
anomaly that you're doing it all, and you're pretty open that you're just like, yeah, and we hear that all the time of like, don't be magic for all occasions. And I'm not saying that you are all occasions, but you have that kind of feel of like, if you got something fun, like Ken Scott's your guy.
Yeah.
So can you talk about, it's not
Sure.
a real question, but can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, it is a legit question because that's the last thing you want to see on someone's business card is for magic for all occasions. Mine kind of started doing birthdays, and I still do birthdays just because I'm getting paid pretty good money to do birthday parties here in
Mhm.
Atlanta, and they become a showcase for me. So I get to go and do these shows. And as I was doing them as I was younger, I realized that my shows were like parents were liking them. Like they were probably liking the show almost as much as the kids. And I wasn't doing like slapstick, like just complete scream, kids screaming type show. I was really doing some neat magic. And so parents got more engaged, I found. And then, I would have a mom come over or a dad come over and go, "Hey, do you do adult parties?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do adult shows." And you never say no to something, right? So I said, "Yeah." And so that's kind of just from growing in birthday party market to, making my show fun for all ages at that birthday party and focusing. I tell people that it's kind of not the right strategy, but when I write a show to this day, I write it for the adult mind. and then the kids kind of come second, which is not what we're taught. But I want the
Hmm.
adults to sit there and really enjoy my show, whether it's in my little lines of jokes or whether it's some really cool magic. The worst thing you can do is be a magician and parents be back there talking in your show, and I don't have that problem. Parents really want to be engaged. They like the slapstick that I've got between the kids, but also with the parents that the kids aren't getting, and they like the magic. And I say, if you don't grab those parents' attention in the first, you know, minute, 2 minutes, they're on their cell phone or they're going to be talking to their friends next door. So I always thought that's kind of how it started, from birthdays, just me wanting to entertain the adults too. And that's kind of how me climbing into doing corporate stuff. And then when I went to the corporate market, it was just, it's just from people seeing me at other events and, hey, we need to book you for this. And then I worked at a restaurant back in the late 90s and the early 2000s for 12 years every Sunday. And it really honed my skills on close up. And that really opened the door to some corporate stuff that I didn't think I would have. And that was just me going around doing standard stuff at the tables. And that was really what kind of pole vaulted me and going full time and getting in some corporate stuff, was me strolling every Sunday for 4 hours.
I would
It's
say,
huge.
yeah, I would say if you're listening and you're thinking about, how do I structure a show, a birthday party show, to, what he just said is like, it's like a secret weapon. Like if you actually craft it so that the adults are going to have just as much fun as the kids, then yeah, I mean, you're doing a showcase. It's what you said. It's like you're a commercial.
Yeah.
And of course they're going, hey, we've got a holiday party coming up. This guy's great. Let's get him.
It's
Yeah, that's
almost not
awesome.
as fun when I go to a birthday party, and let's say it's like 8, 9, 10 years old, and it's a drop off, and it's just mom and dad.
Oh
They're
yeah.
almost like, because I really enjoy when the parents are there, and because they're not ready for a magician to entertain them. They just think their kids are going to be there for this. And when they leave going, that was incredible. That's
That's awesome.
that's what I find my goal. When I had the parents enjoy it. Also, as a children's performer, I say, when you can have a kid do number one, the floor, because they didn't want to fatigue, you're doing something right. As long as they're not doing number two, you're good. But number one, you're good.
Is that because you're just that funny? Is that what it is? Or is it because they just
I
can't
think the show is just, kids today, you can't do long drawn out stuff anymore, and you got to be boom, 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 and
Yeah.
you can't let kids. I'll go do a blue gold banquet, and I'm sitting there going, I bet such and such could handle this, because that some of these events you go to, these young kids will eat you up and spit you out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember
Yep.
we were having a luncheon with Teller, and God, what a genius he is. And I remember him going around asking each of what we did. And I think he said something about years ago when he was younger, he did a scout banquet. He goes, it was the last kid show he did because these kids kicked him in the, what.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, I mean,
you
you want to talk about honesty? Kids will give it to you.
Oh, without a doubt. So, I think you got to be with kids shows and family shows, especially with kids sitting in front of you. You got to be ready for your lines and to I've seen that, I've done this, I know this one, and you got to be ready for your lines, and you got to be louder than them if they're going to get loud. It's why I bring sound, music. I think my show really came to life back when I saw Kerry Pollock at Atlanta Harvest. When I saw him doing music, you talking about an investment. He was doing music with this remote, and I think it was using a mini disc player. I think it was even a CD player at the time, but then he went to mini disc. And I remember telling my wife, "Hey, I want to buy this system." This is back in the late '90s when I was just barely starting out and going full time. I go, "This system is you can do music and start and stop it on your own." And I said, "I think this is really going to elevate my show." And I remember telling her it was like $1,700, and she flipped out. And she goes, "What's the magic in it?" And I go, "It's no magic. It's remote control, and I'll be controlling my music." And to this day, that was the single best investment I made, was adding music into my show, because there's so many elements. You guys both work theater stuff, creating that music and creating elements where it's not just you're going up, you're going down and up like this. And music can make adults listen. If it's a soft piece of music underneath you as a bed. And I may have learned this in radio back when, the guy I was working for had a bed of music when he was talking in the morning. Maybe I learned it from that and just kind of, put it in the back of my mind. But I just, looking at Kerry Pollock, God, that was so great adding music to my show. And I just think that's just a whole nother element that was missing out of my show. And I remember, and not to name drop, but Zach Brown lives not too far from us, and he brought his kids to my show many years ago. And I remember seeing back there, I go, that's Zach Brown. And he was hanging around with his kids. He goes, I got to ask you, he goes, how do you control your music? Now, this man just got
That's
back from
cool.
Fenway Park. I go, man, you performed at Fenway Park for 50,000 people. He goes, yeah, but I got a crew of 100. Um, and I showed him my remote control, and he was just blown away by it. I typically don't tell anybody how I'm controlling my music, but he goes, wow. So, adding that music and using it magically with remote controls on your body and stuff is totally a magic in itself.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, as far as really like trying to create more than just a magic show, if you're really trying to like be as entertaining as you possibly can, like it's you say something like it's so simple as to add music, but that's not simple. Like that's a major. It takes real effort. You have to find the right music cues. You have to know exactly when they should play at what volume. You really have to learn that
Yeah.
stuff. But I believe that's the how you transcend. Like that's how you go from magician to entertainer, at least one of the ways that you do.
Mhm.
Certainly you can include humor, all the different stuff, but it's when you add all those elements together, it's like
Yeah.
when it becomes highly entertaining.
Well, the kind of example I gave years ago at a lecture I was doing, somebody was asking, "Why do you do it? What's the up benefit from?" I go, well, just imagine you're watching Jaws and you don't hear that dun 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 dun. You don't hear that. Then the movie it sucks, right? I mean, there's not a good movie if you don't have that sound effect. And it's the same thing with our live shows. If I don't have those beds of music or those high points or those crescendos when something happens, that trick falls short. But when I have that hit of music and something happens, and trust me, I'm not the first of that. Look at David Copperfield; he's a king of that stuff.
True.
So it's something that people have to think about. It's an investment, and it does make you think. Sometimes when I'm writing routines for my shows, oftentimes a music piece will come first, and I go, "That will be great for this." So sometimes the music comes first. A cue of music or a sound effect will come first before a trick even gets into my mind.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it seems like so much of it is exceeding expectations,
Yeah,
right? Especially if you're doing a birthday party and people are thinking, okay, here comes the kitty magician to entertain the kids, and then you're coming in and you have legitimate comedy chops. You're entertaining the adults. You're doing good magic, and there's all this music, and they can't even figure out how you're playing it. I mean, the production value is
yeah.
just insane, and that's what really makes you memorable, and that's what makes people want to book you for other things. You know.
And here's the thing. I've got some guys, like I had a dear friend of mine that was in New Jersey named Bruce Bray. He wasn't an adult performer. You got to kind of know where your strength and where your weaknesses are. And he knew that he wasn't going to be an adult type performer. He knew his strength lied in doing shows for 3, 4, 5 year olds. And he killed it in those age groups. And so he would go there with, I call it a scream type show where kids just scream and the kids
Mm.
love it. Look at Silly Billy. Silly Billy is a good example. Silly Billy wears kind of a half clown suit, and he knows his audience. And as he was doing these shows for kids in New York, he noticed that the kids that were turning 8, 9, and 10, they didn't want to see Silly Billy. So he created a character called Dr. Blood, which he wore the
Hmm.
scientist outfit and had, used fake blood and stuff. And now he was able to be a different character for the older kids. So
Wow.
I think that's, you got to know your audience. You got to know your strength, your weaknesses. And if you don't think that working for adults, then I wouldn't even, or, for corporations or companies, don't even just focus on the kids. Or if you don't think that, I've seen some guys that say, I can never go do kids shows. They are a corporate guy. Jason, you go back to 2008. Remember when we had kind of the recession, the corporate guys were hurting back then, but
Oh, yeah. Got
birthday
killed.
magicians, people aren't going to skip out on the kids' birthday parties, no matter where you are in wherever our economy's at. They're going to do things for the kids. So I kind of stayed afloat because I kept doing birthday parties. So, you know,
I'm glad you're saying that because I think that sometimes in the magic world, people they say, "Oh, I work corporate," as though it's this badge of honor. Like, and I think it's because they think to themselves, "Oh, corporate is where the money is at," and it's like, well, are you suited to that work? I mean, would because you can find a way to get paid doing a lot of different types of things. And I mean, you know, what I have found when I go into when I start working on a project is the deeper I get into the project, and you can also apply this to like a market, but the deeper you get into a project, the more you learn about it. The stuff you don't know virtually anything about the project on the surface level, but
Right.
the more you get into it, you're like, oh my gosh, just like all these ideas start coming at you because you're really into the project. And so I feel the same way about like if you are thinking to yourself, I'd be a great kids entertainer, but you think to yourself, oh, it doesn't pay a lot of money. Well, that's because you haven't gotten into it yet. You don't know what the market, you don't even know what the market is.
Yeah. Yeah, and and listen, I think kid shows. I even hate to say kid show performers. I like to call myself a family show performer, but
Yeah.
I think people look sometimes down upon the kid show guy because they are the bottom feeders. But I kind of say that kid show performers have a huge responsibility on them because they're typically the first one that is going to be in front of these kids to be in
Yep.
front of magic. And so
Thank
we're
you.
the first introduction for them seeing live magic. And
Thank
so
you.
I often tell like Copperfield and these guys, they go, "Hey, I just lined up some kids that's going to love your magic one day." Um, so I think I'm proud. I don't sit there and hide that I'm not a kid show performer. I'm proud of it, and I don't sit there and go, I do kid shows. I don't. There's
Yeah.
no up game for me on that, and I'm not ashamed of that. So
Well, I mean, and anybody who's good at it, like you, I mean, because that is not my skill set. I am not the type of performer that performs very well for a group. I love how Ben is shaking his head right now that Jason's spot on about this. It's not my specialty. So when I see somebody who is good at it, like my hat's off to him. It's like, hey, if you're a good kids entertainer, then you have my complete, like, I will give you, I mean,
wait,
hats
so
off
Jason,
to you.
you're doing big corporate events. You're speaking now. You're scripted. You have you script these things.
Yeah.
In kid shows, you can. I hate to say scripting. It's almost like bullet points because let me tell you, you got to be ready to zig and zag at a kid show. You got to be ready to switch gears on a drop. If it's not going well here, you got to go this way. So I like to say it's like Dave Chappelle says, you got to zig and zag kid shows because if you're going to stay in that moment, stay in that script, you will be eaten up at a kid show.
Yeah.
Because kids are going to throw lines at you, are not going to be impressed with you, and that they see you slightly suffering, they're going to just pound you like you're a wrestler. So,
Yeah. Yeah. The ones that crash and burn are the ones that refuse to go off script and demand to be taken seriously. And they go, no, I have this piece of magic I need to share with you. You need to pay attention. And like
right.
sometimes you need to like go with the flow a little bit. Right, Jason?
What? I'm sorry. Are you talking to me? Wow. Wow. Man, just a
I
right.
always
All
give
right.
Jason a hard time about his improv skills.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm the strongest improv, but you just mentioned a moment ago, you
I think you
mentioned
get those improv skills from doing kid shows.
I would say you're
100%.
right. Yeah, as long as you're open to it. I mean, some people are rigid about, what they want to do, but I think if you can go with the flow, yeah, you can learn a ton from what if you can work for children, you can work for drunk people. Isn't that basically right?
I remember I don't want to veer off the topic here, but I remember doing a corporate show here in Atlanta, and I didn't realize the company Glock, I guess the
Yeah.
hand
Yep.
made here in Atlanta, and they hired me for a Christmas party years ago. And I remember strolling magic, and it went great. And then I remember being in the ballroom, and it was the kiss of death for any magician. There was 400 people there with round tops, so it means 200 people with backs were to me. There was this gigantic dance floor, then the stage. And I said, this is going to be terrible. This is not going to work out. And sure enough, they got in there and it wasn't going well. I just could not connect with these people. At one point, some guy goes, just give us our bonus. So, I'm like, you're going to have those kind of moments. And I remember going and seeing Justin Willman. He did a corporate show in Atlanta that is hired by a company. And I said, oh, Justin's going to slay these people. But the person who booked him said, hey, be careful because these people are not, they're very loud. They drink a lot. And, he went from a 45-minute show to like 25 minutes because these people were just outrageous.
Yep.
You got to know when to just speed it up and cut ties and get through it.
That reminds me of the Nate Bargatze story where he talks about doing a corporate and he absolutely thinks he's going to kill it. The boss loves him. He dies a painful death. And then the boss comes up and goes to him, I guess I should have mentioned that none of these people speak English.
Yeah. And
It's like, what?
I think he was giving away 2 cars that night and they was waiting for the cars to give away. They're like, get this guy off the stage, give the cars away.
Exactly. Hey, you mentioned Justin William, you mentioned David Copperfield. You have some high-powered friends. I saw you interview David Copperfield at the IBM convention in Atlanta. I mean, he was the guest of honor. And I mean, I think we have you to thank for a lot of that. I'm not going to ask you how you made friends with these people, but how did some of that come about? Like, how did you get David Copperfield to attend virtually the IBM convention in Atlanta? How'd that happen?
Well, I don't think it would have happened if it wasn't for me becoming president. I mean, I am good friends with Chris Kenner, and I've known Kenner since the '90s. Um, Never had a friendship with David, but it was when as a president of IBM, you can choose who you want to honor at that convention that's going to be per se yours, the president's convention. And David had never been honored at any convention, which I was shocked by. I didn't
That's
didn't realize
amazing.
he was never honored at a convention. So I reached out to. I was told that it could never probably happen. I was told by some people that don't even try it, but I said, nah, let me ask Chris, and Chris says, I don't know. Let me talk to him and see where it goes. And it just slowly we had a conversation, and I believe it was at a mid-year board meeting where David calls me and says, let's talk about what this looks like. And we had that conversation, and we kept in touch. And to this day, I'll get a phone call, and he'll call and ask a question about something, or he'll say, I want you to look at this picture, or I'll send him a quick 30-second video of me at a high school doing a trick, and he zooms into it. He goes, look at this person's face. So I don't know.
Oh,
I'm
that's
lucky
cool.
because he truly was my hero when I was
Oh,
growing up
sure.
watching Magic, and I'm still at awe when I know that I can, you know, text him, call him, or he calls me, and he knows who I am. It's just a neat moment, and I don't know. I'm not a like, oh my God, bow down to these guys, but he definitely was the person that I used to love watching those specials, and I think he did a lot for Magic, and he definitely changed the game for a lot of us and got a lot of us into Magic because of what he did on those TV shows.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, David Copperfield has done I mean, it's almost can't even measure it. How important he has been to the Magic community, and
Yeah,
he influenced generation after generation of people watching his specials and then seeing his stage shows. And so, for him
yeah,
to attend the IBM convention virtually, and because I mean, he walked us through part of his
yeah,
museum, and I mean, he called in every day
yeah.
and you interviewed him every day. It was one of the coolest things that I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And a
Listen, I had
big
hope. I had
kudos to
hope at that
both of you.
last minute that he'd fly in and be there in person. I had a slight little, like, can he fly
Yeah.
here just for like an hour? And that didn't happen. But yeah, he was very into it. He set a beautiful studio up in each room that he did for us every night, and he was totally into it. So
That's cool.
we gave away some great stuff to the attendees that year, and and it was a neat moment because I think it was our 100th year? I think it was our 100th year, right? That's what the big thing was. It
I
just
think it
happened to
was
be the year I'm president. We were the 100th year, and we were coming, and it was also the first convention back from COVID, if you
from
remember.
COVID. Yep.
We
Yep.
were out of convention. We didn't do conventions for 2 years, and so everybody was ready for it, and so it was and I remember Stephen coming down because he was president before I was, and I remember we couldn't travel that much. We're still in the height of COVID. And we traveled over to the Hilton over here in Atlanta. And that's kind of how
Hmm.
we booked it because we couldn't really travel much. And that's kind of how it ended up in Atlanta that year is because he was here and we went to go look at this hotel and we booked it. So that's kind of how it started here in Atlanta. And then that's when I kind of said, I didn't realize they said, I think it was Oscar Munoz said, hey, you're going to be president during the 100th year. I went, are you serious? So
That is cool.
yeah, so it kind of worked out, and I know what better to kind of get to honor David on our 100th year. So
Ben, do you have anything you want to jump in on? I don't want to. I mean, I've pretty much monopolized the conversation, so I definitely want to give you a shot.
I mean, that's par for the course on the pod.
hey,
Well,
at
we
least
were
Scott's not
talking.
here. We wouldn't get any word in at all.
At least Scott's not here. Yep, exactly. Poor Scott.
My MO usually is Jason talks most of the time, then Scott chimes in, and then I'll take whatever's left. Um, well, you were talking about the IBM convention. Are there any other conventions that you're a fan of, or any other sort of magic festivals that maybe take place in the greater Atlanta area.
Well, it's funny you say that. Thanks for teeing that up for me there, Ben. Uh, I run a convention, and I run a convention called the Atlanta Harvest of Magic. And now, ironically, that was the very first convention I told you guys back earlier on. That was my convention I went to.
Oh, that's cool.
And I remember as a kid. Now, Ben, you may not. I don't know, Jason. You may not. I think I'm still older than you, Jason. But Del Rey. Did you guys ever get a chance to see Del Rey in person?
I never saw him in person.
You
I've
know who
just
Del Rey
seen
is?
video. Oh yeah, of
Mhm.
course. I have
All
the
right.
book right over here.
Yeah, with Del Rey and Slidini, Terry Seabrook. I mean, it was a Harry Lorraine, early Michael Amar. It was a who's who, and I remember just watching Del Rey, and they put me at a table where he was performing his close-up show because they wanted to get a shot to see his close-up for the camera. And I remember to this day, I remember telling Stan Allen, I said, "This is real magic. This is truly magic." And this was at Atlanta Harvest, and so the Atlanta Harvest went on for many, many years, and then Diane and Jim, who was running it, kind of got out of it just because Jim was having some health problems. And then it didn't happen for a while. And then I started running a convention called the Southeastern Association of Magicians that would land in Atlanta about every other year or so. And we ran it as a club event. And we were making a little bit of money. And I finally said, my wife goes, "Why aren't you doing your own convention?" I go, "That's, yeah, I guess because I'm scared to lose $20,000.
Yeah.
So I finally decided, let me try my own convention. I knew how to run conventions. I helped enough at other conventions at like Magic Live and stuff. So I said, let me try it. So it was a little scary to put on your own magic convention. And that's when I decided I wanted to do it. Diane goes, "Why don't you call it the Atlanta Harvest of Magic?" And I went, "Do I have your blessing?" She goes, "Absolutely." So I kind of
Oh,
kept
that's
the name.
cool. Yeah.
And now I only have it every other year because I just can't afford to do it every year, and um, but that's what we do. I do this small convention, and we're having it. This is the on year for it, and we're having it this year, and it's September 25 through 27th this year in Atlanta at the Sonesta, right by the airport. And it's a small convention. It's always like it was. The big part of Atlanta Harvest was back when I was a kid, and even to this day, it's kind of like a family reunion you want to go to. Because you see
Mhm.
people who love magic. The jam sessions are legendary because people hang in the lobby and just jam and hang out and just talk magic. And it's I like to say it's politic free. It's all
Oh,
card
that's cool.
coin tricks, and you're just being there with like-minded people. And the performers don't go and hide. They're there hanging out with you. So to sit there and see an Aussie win at the table and see 40 people around him as he's doing his close-up match
Oh,
in the
wow.
bar is just crazy. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing, and we still have a few seats left for my convention that's happening in a couple weeks. Whenever this airs, I think Monday you said.
Yep.
But
Yep.
the website is atlantaharvestofmagic.com. Go over there and check out who we've got this year. It's some great talent. We're honoring Paul Gertner, who I love Paul Gertner.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Gertner is
Yeah.
just, I think, just a fascinating performer, and he's got so much to share what he's done in his career. Like a Carissa Hendricks, who many don't know, her Lucy Darling act. Her idea started at an Atlanta Harvest. She attended my convention, and it was Rob Sabrecki who was given a special workshop, and he asked a question and she answered. She goes, "I have an idea about a character," and he goes, "Yes, you should do that." And that's kind of where it started, was at
Oh
Atlanta.
my gosh,
So the
that's
fact that she's
awesome.
bringing that back to the Atlanta Harvest and talking about how she kind of got inspired at Atlanta Harvest by Rob Sabrecki to pursue it, it kind of comes full circle to see her pull up. And we know how big she's gotten to, as far as,
Oh yeah.
I mean, she's just blowing it up with Lucy Darling.
Yeah, Lucy Darling is I mean, doing showrooms in Vegas, and I mean she was just in Nashville recently and sold out multiple shows. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's killing it.
Yeah.
Man, this is exciting. It's only a couple of weeks away, the Atlanta Harvest. Okay, you said it's the Royal Sonesta. Okay, very good. This will
Yeah,
be very cool.
Sonesta right there. Well, you'll see it on my website, Atlanta
Yeah.
Harvest of Magic. It's called Sonesta. It used to be a Crown Plaza, and that's where we've had our conventions ever since I've ran the SEAM, and we just kind of kept it there. And they've kind of they like us there, and they're usually getting uh, stuffy corporate events there where they're doing
Oh
meetings.
yeah. Yeah.
They don't get magicians there hanging around, so they kind of like us being there.
My Atlanta Harvest story goes to the days when I was competing, and I don't remember this was in 2004 to 2005, but I came down to Atlanta. I brought my Cups and Balls act, and I remember Like I got there and I was like, just, and when you're competing, at least I say you, I mean me, when I'm competing, I'm looking around and I'm like sizing people up because I'm super competitive and I'm just like, all right, who do I have to, beat? I remember thinking to myself, wow, this Howie Marmer guy is very impressive. And like I think it was kind of like at the time he would like he was just so wild and zany and just doing all this great magic, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a tough one. But
And for me, I never had the kahunas to do competitions. I didn't think I had that skill set to do an 8-minute act. I just didn't think that was me, and I was always terrified to be in front of magicians. So I applaud you for even doing that. I mean, to this day, if I go to the Magic Castle, my hands are clammy. I'm just,
oh sure,
oh, you're just a nervous wreck when I see magicians, and it took me a while to get over this. And I think that's probably why I do more shtick at a magic convention, because I know my stuff not going to be a big fooler for magicians. So if I can kind of make them laugh, and that's kind of probably why I do stuff with Steven, because we can make people laugh at stuff. I'm not going to
sure.
be a person that's going to make magicians go, that was fooling, but I'm at least going to make them laugh in that. But people who do competitions, I applaud them, because I never could do it. I just did not have the I just didn't have that mindset to do a competition. I
Sure.
would be nervous, be shaking all over.
Oh yeah, oh, I totally get it. So, all right, so you are past international president of the IBM.
I'm a
So
pip. I'm a pip.
you're a pip and not a playing card pip. Is that where did they create that specifically because of playing card pips? So we'll call them pips.
I don't know. I always thought it was because of I guess that's called, what was the four tops and was it the pips, or with
The
the,
pips.
I don't know, but I thought that's where it
Oh,
came from. But who
I don't
knows?
know.
But I've always thought it was been a nice acronym for being a past international president.
So if you,
It's funny because you see like these past presidents, they're at the head of the table, they're
yeah,
wearing the chain, they're running the thing. And then that next day when you gavel it down and you're out, I said, man, you are just forgotten. You're at the end of the table.
what
I
does
mean,
somebody, if you're, look, people see, here's what they see. They see all the bling bling, the big giant thing that you're wearing on, over your shoulders and I mean, on your chest. And so, but what do people not really know about what do people not know about the presidency? Like, like if I'm been involved in the IBM for a while and I go to my local club meeting and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, Ken Scott's the president. What's that like?
yeah. Well, I don't know. I was asked many, many, many years ago to be involved in the IBM, and I always kind of said no. I just felt it was gonna, because my summers are just jam packed, and I thought if I got to help put a convention together or do this, what is it going to take out of my pocket? And at that time, I had 3 young daughters, and I didn't want to, I didn't want to think about losing any kind of money. So as my kids have gotten older and they're out of the house, I kind of got myself in a spot where I'm like, they're not as reliant on me as they were in the past. So I could probably give more back. And IBM was just a neat organization to join as a young kid, because do we still have back those days you had to get 2 sponsors to sponsor you, and you look back in that back of the Lincoln ring and you go, oh look, there's Harry Allen and Dan Garrett sponsored me, and I don't know if we still
Yeah.
do that, but it was always a neat thing. So I thought it was a way to give back. And people often go, what's in it for me to be in the IBM? And I don't think there's a wrong or right answer, and I can't tell someone what's in it for them other than what was in it for me. IBM was so much for me to be a part of as a teenager, and then going into my 20s, and just getting that magazine monthly when I didn't have the internet, when you didn't have things you can look at. That magazine was my internet. God, I sound like I'm so old, like back in the 1900s. That's great.
Don't even talk about it.
Yeah,
I
but
don't want to get into that.
yeah, so I just felt it was a time for me to, I wanted to give back, and and then I was able to go up the chairs. I helped run a few conventions. I did one in Jacksonville, then I did one in Scottsdale the year before we got shut down because of COVID, and they were fun. I like those behind the scenes running things and putting that jigsaw puzzle together, and at the end watching it all come together. That's the beauty of running the magic conventions, and that was part of my fun doing IBM stuff. But as far as an IBM president, it's just I think it's giving back. And if you got something you can share, and Jason, you're in that hot seat. You're up next year, and I think we come in there with some big ideas, but you're in it for 1 year. It's not a 2-year term. It's not a 3-year term. It's not a 4-year term. It's a 1-year term. So I always tell the guys that are coming in, people that are coming in doing it, to focus on something that you want to, make, try to make something big out of it and try to do some changing or something good, and focus on that. Because if you try to focus on so many things, it's probably not going to happen. I think that's one of the neat things that you're in right now as president-elect. You're almost become president for 2 years. If you can kind of work behind Steve and what he's working on, maybe you can kind of start overlaying what he's doing when you get into president. Then it's a
Sure.
continuation of the next guy coming or next girl coming up. So
Sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. Ben, we're starting to wrap up. Are there any really hot, juicy things that you want to ask Ken about?
I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you phrased it that way. So Ken,
You like how I lowered my voice when I said that?
God,
I did. It's your
it's like the
radio
guy on the
voice.
late night talk show. Hey,
Yeah.
you driving
Ken,
out there late at night?
You used to have quite the mustache.
I don't know if it was a mustache. I think it was more. No, I had curly locks, which was called a mullet, and then I had a peach fudge mustache that I just thought was the coolest. It was.
It made it on your VHS tapes, I think, right?
Of course
Yeah.
it did.
So any chance that that's going to come back?
Never.
Oh.
I don't want to say never, because
All right.
I have a grandson now, and he has a mullet. My daughter has his hair cut, and he's got a mullet. And I say, you got to cut this. This is terrible. And she goes, you had it? I go, in the 80s. But I think I went to the 90s with it, so I carried mine a little further. I doubt you ever see it, but yeah, that was some. When I look at pictures of that, it's like, oof, oh, it's
That's too funny.
yeah. Now I'm getting gray hair now, so.
Was that your big juicy ask, Ben?
Yeah, that's it.
Now,
I've been
Scott could
sitting
have
there
asked
thinking
that
about it for
better
the
than
past
you
hour.
did. Scott could have done better than that. Scott had that.
That's right. Good old Scott. We love Scott. Scott's not here.
Well, look, I applaud you guys for what you're doing. This is a good thing, and podcast. I think any way we can get and reach members of IBM and anyone who's potential IBM members, I think that's a great thing. So I applaud you guys for putting your time into this.
Well, just so you
Little
know,
pay.
you are directly responsible for this because you were the guy that when you were president and I looked around and I kind of said, God, we don't really have a marketing committee. And I was like, Ken, can I start a marketing committee? And you're like, go for it. And so hence the podcast came out of the marketing committee. Hence the podcast is all here because of Ken.
No, I don't think it was because of me. I'll truly think some of this stuff that you're doing came from COVID. That's really where it came from. I mean, we couldn't get together as clubs. We couldn't get together as conventions. And the I didn't know what Zoom was back in those days. I mean, I didn't know anything about Zoom, and I think we had to learn this new way of communicating with each other. And I think we as IBM did great back in those days. We were having weekly, monthly lectures by people coming in, and we were hitting people that couldn't come to conventions for whatever reason, money, health-wise, but they could tune into their computer. And so we reached a lot of people that couldn't travel and be a part of us, physically in front of us, but they could be there on the computer. So I
Yeah.
kind of say that kind of helped us was COVID, is getting this kind of platform up and using it more often was what's kind of started. So I'm glad you guys are keeping it going.
Well, thank you. So, as far as people seeing you in the upcoming next couple of weeks, is the best place for them to see if they want to see you? Is the best place for them to see you at the Harvest, or do you have some upcoming performances otherwise, public?
Yeah, a
Public-wise?
lot of my stuff is not public. I mean, I did my first bar. Imagine this. I did my first bar show. This bar that was outside of Atlanta booked me a few weeks ago, and that was a public show. That was nice. But I have an annual Thanksgiving show that I do here in Atlanta at a beautiful theater. I don't have. I think it's called the Academy. I can link it to you guys later, but I do this show. This is my fourth year doing it. This lady had an idea of me coming in and doing it the day after the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And I'm like, God,
Okay.
everybody's gonna be out of town. And come to find out, people were burnt out on turkey by Saturday, were burnt out on football, and they needed an escape because they were tired of shopping come Friday. And so it worked out. And this is our fourth season doing this Saturday after Thanksgiving show. So it's fun, and I get to do a public show that I rarely get to do for people where they get to buy tickets. I
And
know,
you'll post about
Jason,
that
you
on your
do this,
social
and
media.
it's a hard thing to put on your own show and to sell tickets for. It's not an
It
easy.
is. It is.
It's a hustle.
It is. It's definitely a hustle, no doubt. But as far as how people can find out about this, they go to your website or your social media or
Yeah,
what?
social media. I'll have it on social media when it gets
Okay.
closer, but it's an yeah, they can definitely do that. And sometimes I've had a couple guests open up for me, but yeah, it's a neat event, and yeah, so I enjoy doing that. That's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and of
Awesome.
course, by all means, if you want to sneak up to Atlanta and get away for a few days, visit AtlantaHarvestOfMagic.com.
Absolutely. Ben, you got any performances coming up people can see you?
I'll be at House of Cards a couple times a week for the next ever.
So they
So
can
if you're
check
in
that out at
Nashville,
House
yep,
of Cards website. As I'm sure you'll
yep.
post some stuff on your socials as well. Anybody wants to see me perform? I'm performing with Stephen Bargatze at Levity Live at Huntsville, Alabama on the what is it, 21st, I think. Hold on, it's a Sunday, the 21st. Yep. So just if you have any interest in seeing a fun show, it'll be mostly Stephen, but I'll try to make you laugh too. Feel free to come on out and check that out. You can find out more details on my website, which is jasonmichaelsmagic.com. Well,
For that Bergazzi
folks,
name sounds familiar. Does he have somebody that's famous in his family, or is it just him?
how do you say it? Is it Bargatze or Bargatze?
I
Bargatze.
say Bagazzi,
Bar-
Bagaz. I don't know.
Bargatze.
I say it very fast that way it can't be wrong or right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll have him on the podcast very soon, and I'm sure he'll talk smack about you. So,
Well, you have to wipe the
anyway.
screen off many, many times.
It's a
I
very
want to
funny
edit that. He'll get
reference.
mad.
It's a very funny reference. All right, folks. Hey, this has been a whole lot of fun. Thanks for joining us on the official I.B.M. podcast. It's been a whole lot of fun. Thank you, Ken Scott, for
Thank you,
being our
guys.
guest and for doing this interview. Always thank you, Ben, for being here co-hosting. Scott, we missed you,
Did
and
miss Scott.
we will see you guys next time. I'm Jason Michaels, and you guys have a great one. Take care.